What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of our Turners podcast. And we have a special guest, Trevor Roe from Shadow Systems. Trevor, thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. For all of our followers and our listeners, if you have not already, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on our podcast channels and also on YouTube and turn the notifications on so you do not miss out on any of these episodes. So, Trevor, first off, we just want to get going. We want to know who you are and some more information about Shadow Systems.
Sure. So I'm Trevor Roe. I'm the CEO of Shadow Systems. I've been here since 2017. I, of course, came on board when the company was very, very small. We've scaled tremendously over the last several years, and so I'm still here, still at the helm, leading a really capable team of machinists and assemblers and engineers and procurement people. I mean, it's been really fun to watch the company grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you go into a little bit of the story of Shadow Systems for us?
Yeah, so Shadow's got kind of a unique start point or history. One of the things that's funny to think about now is that the business started with no gun industry experience whatsoever. There was not anyone who worked here from the gun industry for probably the first 3 years of our history. It was a company that was started by a group of enthusiasts. I came on board as, I think, employee number 5. And the original concept was just, if you open the box, what do you want to be in the box? It didn't make sense to any of us that you buy a gun from another manufacturer and then you decide you got to upgrade this and change that and put different sights on and so forth. And so from the very beginning, the concept was just, we want the customer to open the box and be like, oh wow, there's nothing I need to do to this. It's ready to go. It's what I would want. And we wanted to use kind of our background as enthusiasts, or in my case, competitive shooter and military or law enforcement. We had law enforcement folks in very early, and it was just, hey, what do you want this gun to be? I think a lot of times big gun companies, they have like a cost target, and they want to pass a certain test, and that's what they design for. And for us, it was just very different. So we wanted to have just the best gun you could get out of the box. We didn't know a lot about manufacturing at the time. We just knew what we wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I have to agree 100%. It seems as if when you get that Shadow Systems, it's exactly what you want and exactly what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And just like when I was first getting into the firearms and all that, it was talking with some associates, they're like, well, depending on what gun I wanted to get, they're like, well, you get this sort of like accessibility to parts and things like that, or
Yep.
on top of it, it's like, how customizable do you want your firearm to be? But when you choose Shadow Systems, it does seem like this is it. It's top notch. It's premier. So it is very cool to hear that was your guys' business plan as well.
Absolutely. That's right.
What was the first model that came out? Did you guys just have one gun at that time?
Yeah, so we're talking right now, and we should go way back. I mean, in the early days of the business, it was again 2017, and for the first couple of years, we were just a parts business, right? We were part of the aftermarket parts for Glock style handguns, and that was our focus. And I would say there was some element of frustration or something that made us say, look, we can do better. We know we can do better than these companies that have been doing it in some cases for literally hundreds of years. Let's see what's possible. And so we decided that we wanted to do something that was a 15+1 compact size handgun as our first production gun, that being a majority of what was in the market at the time. So think, let's say Glock 19 or M&P compact, or compact frame SIG 320 or something, a gun in that size category that did a lot of things well. And because we were thinking about it in that context, the first gun we came up with was what we called the MR920, multi-role. The idea being, this is, if you're just going to buy one gun, you buy an MR920 and it's going to cover all the bases well for you. You'll have an optic mount system that is really second to none in the industry. You'll get high capacity if you have those magazines, or at least 10+1, of course, for California. You'll have a size that's very easy to shoot, very controllable. It's compact enough to carry, but it's big enough to shoot well, to be a good nightstand home defense gun or vehicle gun or carry gun. Does it all well. So it's multi-roll, and so that's what we called it. And that was the MR920. And so that's this gun here. This is the California version of the MR920, and that was the first one that we did.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So on top of the MR and the multi-roll, can you go into some specifics about each of the models that we do have on our California roster? Because, you know, when I looked at MR or XR, DR,
It's
or even
confusing.
CR, it gets
Until
confusing.
you know, we're kind of excited to hear from you what the history is behind those numbers. Because I was talking to Brian Harris, our shadow buyer, this morning, and even he has to look at the descriptions. But I said, after today, I bet you will have an understanding of what all these numbers and
Sure. Yep, of course. So we wanted to have a product naming scheme that was logical, that told you what the use case was. Why do I own this gun? What is it for? Okay. And so once you kind of learn some of these characters, these letters, and what they mean, it kind of falls into place. All right. So the first two letters in the name, MR, DR, XR, they indicate what the application is. What's the role of the gun? Okay. So MR is multi-role. It does everything pretty well. Okay, you can go shoot a IDPA match with it, or you can carry it concealed. It's small enough for that, right? The next gun we released was the DR, duty roll. So think of that as a duty-size pistol. What does that mean? That means a 4.5-inch 9mm, and if it's a high-cap gun, 17 plus 1. Okay, so it gives you an indication of what the grip size is, what the application is. Okay. We did use XR to indicate crossover roll, and a crossover gun to us is one that has usually a shorter top end and a longer grip. Okay, and you see that terminology used a few places. So this might be thought of as a gun which has a full-size grip for people with very large hands or who want to use a high-capacity magazine, full capacity, but still a compact top end. That's a crossover XR roll. So you've got MR, multi-roll, compact gun, but not super small. DR, duty roll, duty-sized gun, conventional holster pistol, and XR, crossover roll, that's kind of in between those two. Okay, so that's what those letters mean. Yeah, so for numbers, the caliber, we do everything in 9mm right now. Is there an argument for us to do other calibers in the future? Absolutely. That's all part of our roadmap. But for now, it's a 9mm pistol because that's most of what's in the market. So 9 is 9mm. If we did a 40, that might be a 4. If we did a 357 SIG, that might be a 3, right? And then those last two digits really indicate the model year. So in 2020, that's when we did the last major redesign of this feature set. So think, 1911, right? Or 1894 lever action, or 1917 Enfield. Those years are basically the year of development. It doesn't mean it's last year's model. It just means that's when the feature set was defined. So that's what an MR920 is, or a DR920.
So for the CR, I know it's not on the roster, but I'm assuming that's compact roll.
Yes, yeah, compact or covert. We call it covert roll. Yeah, so very small, but with still respectable capacity.
Gotcha. So you were talking about how you shoot matches, correct?
Yeah.
That is a big population of our customers
Yes.
with firearms out here in California. Can you kind of go into your ascension into shooting matches and how that started and what you see as being a part of Shadow Systems and shooting those matches?
Sure. Well, so first, I guess you guys should know I'm from California, so I was raised in the Pasadena area, and USPSA shooting was like a huge focus in my life, all through high school until I went into the Army and so forth. So I was very tapped into the healthy California competition shooting community. I spent a lot of time at Norco Running Gun and Burro Canyon and the Southwest Pistol League in Piru, California. So those are like my old stomping grounds as a kid, and that's where I learned to shoot from some really, really talented and wonderful people. Shadow's position has historically been, let's call it the kind of like premier combat type handgun, where we start with a proven basic concept, internal components, operation, like how this gun functions, and then we layer on top of it all of the things we've learned about what makes a gun shootable under stress or against a clock and so forth. This is why Shadow now has over 300 law enforcement agencies, because frankly, police officers can qualify more easily and hit faster under stress with a Shadow Systems pistol. That's just true. So if you look at the feature set that makes that possible, it also makes it a good gun for competition. Okay, so in the carry optics division or in any of the optically sighted divisions in IDPA, an MR or XR 920 is a great option. We do, of course, make the DR 920. So this is one of perhaps the only recently added, anyway, truly compensated gun for the California roster. And that was achieved by having a very unique and patented attachment method for the compensator that has no threads. Okay, so California even thinks that a tri-lug barrel is threaded. Okay, this one has literally nothing on it except an O-ring, and so this was basically passed through as not a threaded barrel. So if you're looking for a compensated pistol, if you want to shoot USPSA open class as an example, or if you just are one of the people that loves a compensator, that's a growing population, the DR920P, P for ported or for performance, the DR920P is a great option. So a lot of people are shooting Shadow Systems guns in competition. They certainly have characteristics, especially the frame, that make them really easy to shoot fast. And so that's what draws a lot of people to our brand.
So what's your go-to then if you're going out for a match? What are you shooting?
Yeah. Well, I would say you have to kind of ask yourself what class you're shooting in. Okay. All the California guns are 10+1. That's a consideration. I also happen to have a typical sized hand, right? I don't have a huge hand, so maybe we should look at that really quickly. So in my right, your left, I have an XR 920, and on this side, I have an MR 920. Okay, so in a conventional capacity, this would be a 15 and this would be a 17. Obviously, they're both 10 for California. What I can say is, if you have a giant mitt, okay, then probably the XR 920 makes a lot of sense. But for most folks, this size grip is pretty spectacular, and one of the reasons it is, so our guns come with a magazine well. This is removable, okay, but it's installed from the factory, and that magazine well has this nice curve at the bottom of it, which for a normal size hand really drives your hand high on the gun, okay? And that's obviously what helps control recoil more than anything else. If you see somebody shooting and they have a big gap between their hand and the beaver tail, you know that's going to be more muzzle rise for them. The reason our frames are shaped like this is because they drive your hand really high on the gun, and that's what gives you really tremendous control and makes Shadow Systems guns really flat shooting. It's just best practices in frame design and texture. Okay, that's what you're really getting. So for most people, I mean, I personally, even though the XR has a bigger grip, for my hand size, I can shoot an MR a little faster. And that's where I would gravitate in most cases. If you have giant hands, you might go this direction instead. So that's a personal choice.
Yeah, gotcha. Because I get a lot of questions. Running the social media, everyone's like, "What do you think? Should I get this model or this model?" It's like, everything is dependent upon yourself. I have a background in baseball. I played baseball growing up in college, and it's like, not every single person's going to swing the same exact bat, model, shape, size, weight. You know what I mean? So there's more to it than just like, that firearm looks really cool and I want to add to my collection. That's great for, if you want to go to the range and just shoot around. But when it starts getting into, and I'm sure, like the competitive aspect, you want to maximize your opportunity and whatever, attributes that you have to fit you perfectly.
That's right. And I would say that one of the things that we really try to do is, the joke we used to make is that we've lost sleep over features on the gun that no one's ever going to notice. And it's just because we're so obsessive about all these little nuanced features. No single one of them by itself will make the gun more effective, but when you start to stack them together the way we have, it becomes, my opinion only, I'm biased, the most shootable gun in the industry. I believe that's true. I believe that we make a gun that is easier to shoot quickly and hit with under stress than anything else. I believe that. So what are the features that do that? And it's probably worth walking through that briefly. And I'll use the MR920 as the example here because this is the gun that is our kind of our best seller in almost every market, California included. And we'll start at the bottom. So I talked about the removable mag well. It's included. It comes with the gun. What you can't see here, and it's really because it's so beautifully fitted, there's a back strap that changes the grip angle of the gun. And this is like really important because a lot of people will think of back straps as just being related to grip size. Okay, but the back strap for a Shadow Systems gun changes the angle. So if you're used to shooting M&Ps, there's a back strap in the box that's going to make it seem more like the kind of flatter feel of an M&P. If you're used to shooting Glocks, you're going to find one that lifts the muzzle up like a Glock does. So we really try to make the gun configurable to the shooter in terms of their natural point of aim, not that you have to tailor your technique or your sort of intuition to the gun. Let's tailor the gun to you. I think it's always been somewhat odd to me that there's all this fixation on how big your hand is because I think that matters less than how the gun points, right? So that's the back strap. We use a wraparound texture that's really it's really custom in its appearance. We were one of the first brands to use what's called a 5-axis laser to actually surface the interior of the tool, the mold, to make this grip, which is why it gives you this really nice wraparound texture instead of like your typical like stick-on flat panels that you see on frames. We have what we call the recoil control ledge. There's a nice little engagement point for your thumb, sort of the bone of your hand, because most people shoot thumbs forward now. So let's give you something to hold on to. And then on the slide, we have front and rear serrations, and they're directional, which means that they are really sharp going this direction, but they're actually quite smooth going this direction. So when you're coming out of a holster, there's no resistance, but if you're manipulating the gun, there's plenty of resistance, right? We also do a great big green outline tritium front with an oversized lamp because we think that the front sight's what really matters. If you're a sight shooter, we're not sure that lining up dots and dashes and stuff when you're scared out of your wits makes a lot of sense. Instead, we just push the big green thing toward the bad thing, and you pull the trigger till it goes click, as they say, right? So this is just to draw your eye to what matters. And it just throughout the gun we think like that. It's like, what would we want it to be? The optic system is multi-footprint, the longest, strongest screws in the industry, low mounted, so you get to use these sights and still have a lower 1/3 co-witness. I mean, it's just lots of little things that really add up.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Mike, you got any questions?
Yeah, well, I think something that's important to mention, these guns are all made here in the U.S., right?
Yes.
And it's pretty much, you guys are based out of Texas, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And
yeah,
thanks for mentioning that. I think sometimes people forget that some of the most popular brands in the industry are foreign companies, and that's not bad by itself. Okay, I'm not thinking it's bad, but I do like the fact that Shadow Systems is 100% made in the United States. We have vertically integrated significantly, which means that we have brought in manufacturing capacity. Like I said earlier, we kind of put the cart before the horse, where it's like, hey, let's make this awesome gun. We know what it needs to be. How do we make it? And so we brought in experts from aerospace and people with deep experience in other industries and machining parts, and kind of navigated our way through injection molding and all the stuff that it took to make a gun. And that's what brings us here. But yes, we're 100% made in the United States. We are based in Plano, Texas. Our company is a pretty sizable company now. We have over 100 employees. We actually peaked during COVID at 170 employees, pretty big business. Wow. And we are per the ATF's data, because the ATF releases manufacturing data, as of 2023, we were the number 11 producer of 9mm handguns in the country, and the number 26 producer of firearms overall. And there were 3,000 companies on that list. So we've become pretty big.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. One other thing that I think we should talk about, I'm pretty sure, magazine-wise. So we talked about competition shooting, and these guns are obviously new to the market here.
Sure.
I can't remember when exactly they got put on the roster, but it was far outside of our Freedom Week here in California. But mag compatibility, tell us about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So all the California guns, which again is the MR, XR, and DR920P model, right? All of those are Glock magazine compatible. So if you already have 19 and or 17 magazines, They will fit these pistols. Okay. The CR models, which are not sold in California, unfortunately, those have a proprietary metal magazine, and the only reason for that is we did not feel it was prudent to use a Glock magazine for the subcompact because the Glock magazine capacities are pretty low for their subcompact guns.
Yeah.
And so we were able to make a gun in the form of what we call the CR920X. We were making a gun that's a 15+1 that's the same size as the Glock 43X 10+1. But again, that's not as relevant for California, unfortunately. For the guns in California, Glock magazine compatible.
Which is great for all the people out there that have tons of old your standard capacity Glock mags laying around.
Yeah.
I know I have a bunch.
Many
wasn't old enough.
People do. Yeah, many people do. I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, it was the Wild West in those days. Anyway, so yeah, they also fit Glock holsters. That's an important element.
Oh.
So we even though the external geometry of the frame looks obviously very different, we have designed inside the envelope so that we're not bigger in any area really that creates non-compatibility. So if you have a 19 holster, it would be a 19 holster for an MR, or it would be a 19 holster or potentially a 19X or G45 holster for the XR. And if you have a G34 holster for the DR920P, you'll have holster compatibility. Because we realize that, like you said, a lot of people already have all that stuff. So why should we make them go out and buy it again? Right?
Sure. Well, I think that's a pretty good transition to get to the next subject, which that compatibility is going to kind of bite you guys in the butt a little bit, right? So here in California, we've done a couple of podcasts on it. We're up against this AB1127 where we're seeing, initially they said, it was a Glock ban, right? But it's really Glock style pistols. And then it's been really streamlined down to pistols that feature a cruciform trigger bar that can take a convertible device to convert the gun into a machine gun. So I think we've talked a ton about what that law is, but unfortunately, I think everyone here was super bummed to see we finally got a really awesome, ready to out of the box, all your dreams come true gun in a shadow, and now we're gonna lose it, right? So it's a super bummer.
Yeah.
But we have some time. We have guns in stock, and we have a lot more guns on the way.
That's right.
But we're super excited to get these guns in people's hands and before we have to stop selling them. So remind guys, we have a bunch of different models we carry in the stores. You can go in the stores today and pick up a Shadow Systems. We have more guns on order.
Right.
We have tons of guns coming, and we have a good window to get these orders on the books and get guns in so we can fill all the deposits we can take, right? Unlike Glock, who's kind of backed out of the market. I hate to pick on a manufacturer, but they've never really been California friendly. And even through this process where it was a tremendous sales opportunity, an opportunity to kind of get guns in the hands of consumers and kind of shows California the middle finger, they chose the different direction and just kind of shut down and moved on, where you guys are really rallying and getting behind the California consumer and are going to keep making guns and getting Brian's orders filled. So Turner's will have all the guns we need to get orders filled. So we can't stress enough, guys. This is your chance. One huge advantage. You've heard our podcast about, why Glocks are so great and why everyone needs a Glock. This is just a better option. It's a different price point, but like we talked about the upgradability of Glocks, these guns are all done right out of the box. They have better triggers. They have slide cuts. They have optics cuts. They have everything you could want in a finished gun you're building. Shadow Systems has right out of the box. So I urge you guys, if you're not familiar with the brand, get out in the store, do your research on YouTube or whatever you guys do nowadays, but get down to the store, get one in your hand. I think you'll be super impressed. And get one while you can, because again, we have that limited window with AB1127.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, Mike said it best. I think he really took it away right there. But I was talking about with an associate yesterday. I was letting him know how we were going to do a podcast with you guys. We were super appreciative. And we were trying to run it down. You know, we got to be careful with YouTube and the way YouTube is with their guidelines. But when we were running it down, if you were to obtain a specific item and want to upgrade it to what a Shadow Systems looks like, it just doesn't make as much sense rather than getting exactly what you want, exactly what you need. I mean, I'm a big advocate. I think time is money, and I would rather just get exactly what I want rather than trying to spend time, you know, look through more. When
Yeah.
you guys are professionals, you've taken it all away. Like you said, you
Well,
guys
we've done
have
it.
professionals.
We,
Yeah.
we've made those upgrades. We've been the enthusiast. We've been the person in the garage building and experimenting and testing and trying. And you're right. I think sometimes people will react to the price point and they'll say, "Oh, that's kind of high." But the reality is, if you want to even get close to what's included in the box, starting with a regular production gun from someone else, you're going to spend a lot of money and you're going to have a lot of heartache, and you're also going to take a lot of missteps. And what I mean by that is you run into cases where it says it's compatible, but it's not. You know, you got a part from this manufacturer, you got a part from that manufacturer, you're putting together your dream gun, and then all of a sudden it doesn't run. And it's like, well, now what, right?
Yeah, there's no one that's going to help consumers with that. We see that a lot in the AR space, right?
Yeah, right.
These guys want to build guns or whatever, but what happens when you go and you put, you know, a new striker from this guy and a new spring from this guy and a trigger from this guy, and you go and have grip work done by another guy and
Right.
slide
You
cuts
don't have a
done by
warranty,
another
that's
guy.
for sure.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have a gun that doesn't cycle or has light primer strikes or whatever. We've seen it. I've built custom guns, and you got nowhere to go, right?
Yeah.
So with Shadow, you're getting a proven performance proven gun. Obviously, with the support that you guys have seen with law enforcement agencies,
Yeah.
these things need go bang when they need to. So that has a lot to say for why someone should just cut to the chase and go right to a Shadow.
Yeah, it's kind of the buy once, cry once thing.
Yeah.
And we have a lifetime warranty, whereas limited lifetime warranty, I think I'm supposed to say, but it's a lifetime warranty, whereas some of the other brands that are like us don't have that. We are, of course, U.S. based, so you get pretty nice, pretty quick customer service. And frankly, that service level has been part of what's drawn law enforcement to us as well, because I've seen just in conversations with some of those customers that some of those bigger brands, they don't seem to I'll just say it this way, they've been doing it for a long time and it's kind of my way or the highway, and you see that attitude a little bit. We're still very connected to the customer in a way. We still feel like the customer because it wasn't that long ago that we were. And so I think that is kind of part of our culture. That was actually one of the things that was cited when we won West Virginia. We recently won the state patrol for West Virginia, so over 1,000 guns. Colorado State Patrol was a win a couple years ago, where a big agency has selected Shadow, and there's, like I said, there's like 300 of them now. But it's just a combination of the shootability of the platform and I think the service level we provide. So.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear, especially from a CEO of a company like you guys, that yes, the quality of the product is outstanding. And then on top of it, like you said earlier, it's a never-ending pursuit of seeing how can we make this better, rather than just pushing it out and just leaving things as is.
Yeah, and I'll never say we're perfect. I mean, that's one of the things that's different, I think, with us too. Is we're not perfect. We're not perfection. Okay, we're striving to always be better. And to innovate and to develop new, interesting things that help our customers be better shooters. But we try to have kind of a humble approach. And our goal at the end of the day, it's in our vision statement, is that we want to give a no BS advantage to people defending themselves, their families, and our society. It's in our mission statement. And so that's really what these guns are all about, and we try to do it in a way that's humble. And I certainly, it's not the cheapest gun in the market, but you get something that's special and that's different. And I will say this too, if you're just standing there in front of the cabinet, it's sometimes a bit, the gun case, it's sometimes a bit difficult to understand fully the advantages. But if there's a chance to go and shoot a gun, or if somebody you know has a Shadow Systems pistol, try to shoot it, because it really will help you see the difference.
Absolutely. Well, We did a little open-ended thing and for some questions from our customers. We just have a couple. You've already highlighted some
ready.
as well, so we're just going to do about two of them. But we know that this is from a customer. We know that you guys are very in on the polymer type of frame. Could we potentially see a metal frame of a shadow system with how markets are trending?
Good question. There is not a current plan for an all-metal frame, but don't walk away thinking that means that I'm not open to a more metal frame. Okay, so there is some product planned for 2026, which will I think surprise some people and perhaps be a something closer to what that customer has in mind.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like 2026. We did a podcast with Brian Harris, our CEO, last week, and he said it looks like a very prospective year without, giving us details because there's NDAs and things like that. Too much. We can't give too much information. But the other one, we had a customer, and they're, from what they made it sound like, they're pretty standard. They like to go to the range and plink, and they just want something that they can have maybe as a desktop gun. What would you recommend for that customer personally?
Unless this customer just has giant hands, I'd get an MR920. The only reason not to would be, again, hand size, or if they're just sitting on a mountain of 17 round magazines or something and they want to be able to use those. But the MR920 has, since its introduction, really been a majority of the sales because, again, it does so many things well. So when in doubt, get an MR920. If you are an enthusiast who's looking to squeeze the last microsecond out of their splits and out of performance, then you get a DR920P. If you want more of a duty size handgun, maybe it's an XR.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, those are kind of some of the questions. A lot of them are repeat questions or, some other ones that, we wish we could see, but it's just is what it is with California roster in the market. But Mike, do you have any other questions before we
just to cover for everybody across all the different sizes? Do they all carry the same optic cut platform throughout?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the answer is yes. The optic cut that we developed and patented is one of the reasons we've had the success that we have, and it offers some pretty significant advantages. I kind of alluded to them a little bit, but if you've ever had the experience of trying to pair the right optic with the gun and which screws do you need to use and what, and so forth, it can be a bit frustrating. And honestly, a lot of the designs for optic mounting on pistols are very much an afterthought, which is to say that the gun was designed in, let's say, 2000 or 1985 or whatever, and then now optics become popular, and so it's kind of a retrofit job. And that's what you see on a lot of the designs. What we patented was a complete redesign of the extractor depressor plunger assembly, which created significant clearance below the optic. So if you look at a Shadow Systems optic cut, the screws, and you won't be able to see it here, but the screw holes actually go all the way to the bottom of the slide, which is to say that those mounting screws come down almost to the rail, right where my finger is. That makes them the longest, strongest screws in the industry, by far. So you don't rip optics off of our guns when you're racking them against your gear or you're using it as a control point on the gun. And what's unique about that is that not only do you have these really strong long screws, but you also have a multi-footprint pattern. So we can fit, let's say Holosuns or RMRs. We can fit the Loophole Delta Point Pro. We can fit some of the Shield platform versions. So it's a very versatile optic cut that's extremely strong and is also really low in the slide. So that means that when you buy the gun, a lot of times you'll see optic mounted guns or optic ready guns from other manufacturers, and they have these like giant shark fin front sight and giant rear sights, and that's to compensate for the fact that their design couldn't get low enough. And so we actually have a relatively normal height sights. They don't look weird. They're still great as regular iron sights, but they'll co-witness with the optic when you mount it. So the only exception would be the Delta Point Pro, because they made the body really tall. But for holosuns and RMRs and most of the stuff you put on one of these guns, they'll co-witness with the stock height sight. So that's another thing you don't have to go buy.
Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't even know that.
I mean, what optic is like your go-to for, say, you're shooting your competitions?
Yeah, for a competitive shooter, a lot of folks will like a Trijicon SRO. I think it's a great option. Holosun now has some big window versions of their optics, which are great. We see most people mount Holosuns and like 507Cs, and we see them mount obviously RMRs and derivative of RMRs. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Vortex. We're big out here. Vortexes.
Yeah, Vortex is
Pretty
good too.
big
Yep,
player out here.
we can mount those up. I mean, we have a kit for the EPSs. So I mean, you can mount a lot of stuff on here, but you know, most folks are going to gravitate toward those same kind of mainstream optics. And for the competitive shooters, they're going to want the bigger window, and so a lot of them are going to use, assuming they're not just shooting competition with their carry gun, which you can certainly do with our stuff. They might be using you know, SROs or big window stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, you got any more questions?
No, I think just to wrap up, I think people will want to hear right from Trevor about, you know, the fact that these guns are going to be going away here in a few months. I think we have till July to sell them, right? That they can be confident that you guys are going to be able to produce guns, get Turner's guns, and fill their orders for the next few months. They don't have to be worried that we're snake oil salesmen and we're taking deposits on things that aren't going to get here. But I think we have Trevor's word, right, that we're going to be able to fill these guys' deposits. So get in the stores, check out these new cool guns, and get some money down on one so you can get one. Because I have a feeling that once this gets out and once some of the other things start drying up, I think we're going to see a huge focus on Shadow. And we're excited to tell everyone that they're behind us and behind California, and they're going to make sure that they have guns trickling in to get in the hands of all these consumers before the deadline.
Yeah, certainly. So, you know, Turner's has been a wonderful customer for us. California is a huge focus for us. You're right. The future for us there is very uncertain. There's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that we'll have product past July, and who knows what other obstacles will pop up between now and then. So we're pumping out guns for California. It is very probable, as you suggest, that July is the end of the road. And so that is something that our whole team, in particular the operations side, is working literally overtime right now, making California guns.
And that's an important topic you brought up. I mean, everyone wants to be able to have guns that are compliant going forward, but the reality is we just don't know. Right. No one has anything out there ready. So the Glocks, the Darias, the Shadows, all the guns that are affected, when the fat lady sings, it's over, and then everyone's going to have to kind of go to the drawing boards. It was already a challenge to get guns, and I applaud you to get a gun on California. You know, Glock never got a new gun. We're selling a 25-year-old or older technology still in Glocks. No one was really able to bring a pistol like yours to our market in a number of years. So
thank you for pointing that out.
It's not easy. People aren't going to just be able to slap a couple features on a gun and get it on the roster after the deadline. So who knows what's going to happen? Like we said in the other videos, guys, it's the holidays. Tell your wife and your kids or whoever that you need a new Shadow for Christmas, and or that you could at least justify spending the money before your wife spends it all on Black Friday. So get out there and get a Shadow Systems. I'm sure you'll be thrilled with it. They're exceptional firearms, and it sounds like a really awesome company. I love that it's here in the U.S. I'm a Texas guy. I love that it's in Texas. I'd buy one just for that.
Yeah.
But that's all I have. Trevor, thank you. We really appreciate you. We know it's busy. Thank you for taking the time and jumping on our new podcast here. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And for all our followers, make sure you like, follow, subscribe. You're not going to want to miss out on any more shows. And if this is your first show, go ahead, watch some more back. And we have a big one coming out next week, so stay tuned for more. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.